So wait there, Nez, and welcome to a video explaining verbs in present, imperfect, and perfect tenses. Please read the information here so you don't confuse yourself by thinking you need to know more than you actually do. So this is the table we're going to be using. I'm going to show this again later. Don't worry if this is new to you. So let's start with the basics. A verb is a doing or being word. Verbs have tenses, which is when it happens, and person, which is who is doing it. In English, we have 6 of them. So they are I, you, he, she, or it, we, you plural, which I'm going to use as y'all, a very nice Americanization to express when you're talking to more than one person, and they. Now, even if you've never been properly introduced to those terms, you may actually be thinking, hold on, I know those words. First person and third person. Where on earth have I heard them before? Well, you may have seen them in gaming. A first person shooter is when I am doing something. I am looking through my eyes. Whereas a third person shooter is you're looking over his shoulder. You're giving orders to him or her or it or whatever the case may be. So we use these terms quite often in the real world as well as just in the weirdo world of Latin. In Latin, rather than using just a word in front to express who is doing it, we change the ending of the word. So we can see here that this word neko, which has a basic meaning of kill, has got 6 different endings here to match with the 6 different persons. So neko, nekas, nekats, nekamus, nekatis, nekant, being I kill, you kill, he kills, we kill, y'all kill, and they kill. Quite a lot. And I've got some translations we can see down here. So the first one here, we can see is ego here, I do something, I run to the shop. The second one down ends with an S. We've also got the 2 to give you a help. You are watching the play. Grumio here, so we've got that T. Notice there's no word for he here, but we know who the he is, it's Grumio. So it's Grumio has a girlfriend. And finally at the end here, we can see this unt ending, so it's going to be the boys like food. They like food. If you have studied any French or Spanish, you're probably looking at some of those endings and thinking that they might remind you of something. Or certainly the persons, our pronouns that we can use, all look very similar to the French and to the Spanish, and that is because, of course, they come from the same original place. The Romance languages are based on Roman languages, i.e. Latin. So there are a lot of similarities between them. It's not quite the same for German, even though Latin and modern German do come from the same original place. That was a very, very, very long time ago, and they've separated way before even Latin and was around. So you can't quite learn German endings from Latin, but we can still see that we do still have first, second, and third person, and then again in the plural. So there's still the same basics there, just a little bit of a differences with endings. It's also worth noting that unlike in English, we don't need a pronoun to show who is doing the verb. We might have one, but we don't need one. So you can see here that ego consumo and just consumo mean the same thing. Nos bebemos and bebemos mean the same thing. They all just mean, on the right, we drink wine. We don't actually need a word for we, it's expressed by it being in the verb. They might include one if they really want to emphasize who is doing something, but it's not necessary. It's also worth noting that English tenses are a bit bizarre. I walk to the shop and I am walking to the shop are both present tense, something that's happening now. But there's a slight difference between the 2 of them. Latin doesn't do this. It just don't concern yourself with this particular problem. For the present tense, for example, I walk to the shop and I am walking to the shop is the exact same. You fight lions and you are fighting lions is the same. Yeah, English is really weird. English doesn't actually have the past, present, future. It's actually got that mess of tenses, which is just confusing. I mean, perfect continuous future in the past is apparently what? No. Anywho, ignore that nonsense. Imperfect tense. Sometimes the imperfect tense is called the past incomplete tense. I'm going to use the word imperfect because that's the word that the Romans would have been using-ish. So it is something when something not finished in the past. So I was doing something, you were doing something. We can also see some other translations here. I used to do something. I used to go to the shops, but now I starve. I don't know, whatever the sentence is. We can also see that it's got more or less the same basic endings. There's still st, mus, tis, unt. First one's a bit weird, but don't worry about that. So there's still a lot of similarities with the present tense, but now there's the ba in front of that. So now it's nekar bam, nekar bas, nekar bat, nekar barmus, nekar bartis, nekar bant. So if we're looking at our sentences, which haven't really changed, the only thing that's changed is the verb. So whilst it used to be I run to the shop, it's now I was running to the shop. This is something that was not finished in the past. Presumably you stopped running for some reason. The second one, therefore, is you were watching the play. Grumio, theoretically, Grumio was having a girlfriend, but that's not really a sentence that we really like to use in English. It just doesn't sound right. So you could either say Grumio had, or here we can avoid that problem by saying Grumio used to have a girlfriend. The boys used to like food. It's worth noting that when you're trying to translate verbs and you're trying to work out what tense it is, you've got to be quite careful. For example, is the ending unt or is it bant? Really got to pay attention and think about what the stem, the original part of the verb is, and work it out from there. We've also got the perfect tense. If the imperfect tense is incomplete in the past, the perfect tense is therefore complete in the past. Again, new set of endings. E isti it, imus istis erunt. Not quite the same as for the present, but there are still some strong similarities. So you can still do quite a lot of work to try and work out patterns rather than having to learn everything individually. So correct translations here would be something like I killed, I did kill, I have killed, something like this. So we can see on our sentences, kukuri looks very weird, but just means I ran. I ran to the shop, finished actions in the past. You have watched the play. Grumio had a girlfriend, finished. Oh, he's very single now, very sad times for Grumio. And finally, the boys did like food, implying that they are now starving and going to die. Aww. So here is the full table for our verbs. If you're trying to learn them, I would very much suggest doing a bit of a chant. It's a good way to get it into your head, and it's a quick cheat. So, a little bit chanting. I, you, he. We, y'all, they. OST, mus, tis, unt. Bam, bas, bat. Barms, bartis, bant. Iesti, it. Im, sistis, erunt. Or you can do a little bit faster. It's quite nice the fact that it's in 6. I, you, he, we, y'all, they, OST, mus, tis, unt, bam, bas, bat, barms, bartis, bant, iesti, it, im, sistis, erunt. You may have noticed I'm pronouncing that letter I there as an E sound, because that's just what the Romans would have pronounced it as. Also, you may have possibly worked out that these two endings might be quite new to you, the idea of having a first and second person plural, and you may not have met that yet. Don't worry, it will come up at some stage. So if we do some examples, we can see here, so for the first few, I've given the pronoun to give you a hint, so you can see this sentence. You want to pause here to go over it. 3, 2, 1. So the said des means it's you are doing it. It's obviously present tense because we're in this one here. So it's going to be you are sitting in the atrium. For the second one here, I've underlined for you the fact that it, so it's got to be over here. So it's going to be perfect tense, something finished. And it's just going to be he. We don't know exactly who the he is, just he. He slept in the garden. For the third one, I've underlined the bartis, so we can again see where it's going to be. It's going to be the imperfect tense, so something was happening. Was, like the French vous, you were eating dinner. Or if I want to be more correct there, I could have said you plural or y'all were eating dinner. You might just see it as you. Fourth one down, we can see we've got 2 verbs here. One of them is in the imperfect and one of them is in the present tense. So for the first one, it's going to be we were doing something, and for the second one, we are doing something. So we were drinking in the pub, but now we are walking to the house. Possibly a little bit unsteadily, depending on how long you were in the pub. And for the last one down, we can see we have intra-wit and then salutar-wit. So these are both over here again. First part of the sentence is going to be pretty easy. Perfect tense. The master entered the house. The second part of the sentence, though, is it the friends doing something? Well, no, it can't be the friends doing something, because we've already said we're over here, which is in he, she, it. So it can't be the friends plural doing something. The pronoun that's hidden here is just he. The master entered the house. He greeted his friends. Can't be his friends are doing something because they're plural. Always pay really close attention to the verb ending. Oh, and this is what happens if you drink too long in the pub. You will end up stumbling on the way home. If you're a cat, apparently. I don't know. We've also got to consider, as you may have noticed going through this, that the stem of the word has changed. So, for example, between these two, we can see that there's a little bit of a change going on. So the first one there is the present tense. The slave works in the garden, or the friend eats dinner. And the one below it, shown by the it ending, is going to be perfect tense. The slave worked in the garden. The slave ate dinner. This is a very common thing that happens in Latin, where things change from the present tense to the perfect tense. Quite often, that adds in a V. So laboral wit. V's are W's. So quite often that's a change, but it's definitely not required. As you can see with consumpsit, there's no V in there, but it's definitely perfect tense. When you are looking up a word in a dictionary, sometimes it will specifically tell you that the perfect tense looks different. So we can see here, discedit, a word for leaves or departs, will go to discessit in the perfect tense. So sometimes they'll tell you in a dictionary, even if you are doing Latin at a very low level. It's also worth considering that not every verb even changes, which is super confusing, but you'll learn this as you go. If you are going to use a dictionary, by the way, don't use Google Translate. Google Translate's really bad at Latin. It's really funny, in fact, how bad at Latin it is. Few options. Wiktionary is not bad, but it might be a bit complicated. I found this one the other day, latintoenglish.com, which honestly seems pretty good. I haven't used a huge amount, but we can see here, if you search a specific form of the word, it's going to tell you all the various results. I think it even does it by sort of popularity of the result. So this is the most likely thing you'd get for with it. It's actually the only result as well. And it will tell you here some complicated business about what the verb will look like and all the rest of it. If you're at a basic level of Latin, you probably don't need to care. If you're a bit older, you might know that those are the 4 principal parts, which are quite important to learn. And it even tells you down the bottom what it thinks the possible versions of that word are. So it thinks it's got an ending it, which would mean that it's therefore a perfect tense, third person singular, i.e. he. Mood and voice are things that you definitely don't need to know about if you're watching this video, I hope. So, another thing to worry about. What on earth is going on with the vowels? We can see that the sentences are clearly present tense on one side and imperfect tense on the other side, but something very strange is happening. We can also see our sentences. Excuse me, coffee. The slave loves the horse. The slave was liking the horse, or was loving the horse. The slave sees the horse, was seeing the horse. The slave eats the horse, was eating the horse. The slave listens to the horse, was listening to the horse. The vowels keep on changing, even though the meaning of the sentence isn't changing hugely. All we're doing is changing the verb or the tense of the verb. So what's actually going on here is something called conjugation. Conjugations are groups of verbs which share a vowel. Latin has 4.5 of them. They're a bit complicated. I'm going to have to do a video on them probably at another stage. Wait, have I got to the point that I'm telling you what my future videos are? Oh god, that's horrible. Anyway, no, moving on. Verbs share the same endings. So unlike noun endings where you really need to pay attention to what declension it is in order to know what the noun is doing. Verbs mostly share the same endings, it's just the vowel that goes in front of it that has changed. By the way, this is the same as in French and Spanish, and you don't hugely worry about it when you're doing those things, but AR, ER, and IR, that's just conjugation. You could call it the AR conjugation and it would be the exact same. Latin tends to number them, but it doesn't have to. Unless you're writing sentences from English into Latin, you don't need to worry about it too much just yet. Also, final note, and this is definitely a different topic. There is a difference between the sentence "the man bites the dog" and "the man is bitten by the dog." The second sentence there is something called passive. In English, it vaguely sounds similar, like the man is bitten by the dog. That's basically the same. In Latin, it's got completely different endings. You're not doing that until GCSE level, and you are not translating those sentences at Key Stage 3. Please don't try and do something like this. Make sure your nominative is doing something to your accusative, and then everything will be cushed up. So in summary, verbs are the most important part of a sentence, and you must learn the endings to work out who is doing the verb and when it happens, because quite often there won't be any extra help in the sentence to figure out those two problems. You should learn the definitions of words. You should learn that a verb is a doing or being word, that tense is when it happens, that person is who does it, and that a present tense verb is happening now, so I am doing something. Incomplete action in the past is the imperfect tense, I was doing something, but a complete action in the past is the perfect tense, I did something. Learn the endings. I would suggest chanting, but whatever works for you. So in total, hope that helps. Thank you very much.